right, it's the sound that cues you and makes sure that you know that it is time for In Focus. And my name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Now, every Sunday we get to meet right here just to have a conversation on various topical issues, from matters that are of human interest to other matters that are of concern to you from wherever part you're watching us. And it is an interactive conversational show. And of course, all you need to do to be part of the program, I promise tonight I will be able to read your tweets. Simply tweet us using the hashtag InFocusRW. That is the hashtag to use. We definitely will be able to read some of those tweets right there. And of course, it's a show that is analytical. We want to be analyzing some of the events that have taken place over the past 1 week, and of course also today at the African Union Summit in Addis. Plus, of course, we will be looking at the happenings at the World Economic Forum. President Donald Trump and Rwanda's President Paul Kagame did meet, and of course we'll be able to analyze that. Of course, President Museveni of Uganda did say that he admires Donald Trump of United States for his frankness on African matters and Africans. Do you agree with the president of Uganda? And of course, we'll be able to talk a bit about that right here. And of course, change of guard at the AU chairmanship. President Paul Kagame has taken over as the chairperson of the African Union. We'll definitely be able to look at what lies ahead for Rwanda's president and what that means for you who's watching us tonight. So let's introduce our panelists on the program. We have Gatete Views, of course, a blogger and also a human rights lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us, Gatete.
Thank you very much.
Are you good?
Yes.
Ready to go?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. And of course, back on set, Dr. Lonzen Rugira, of course, columnist and also a scholar. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Welcome back from the honeymoon yourself.
Honeymoon, how? And of course, Gonzag Muganwa. Thank you so much for joining us, Gonzag.
Thank you for having me.
Ready to go?
Sure.
Perfect. So we're going to start this conversation, of course, but first of all, we'll be able to look at some of the items that we have right here. And this is what U.S. President Donald Trump is reported to have said at, behind the scenes. He's actually talking about the issue of immigrants, and he is reportedly reported to have told senators in the Oval Office that, why do we want all these people from two whole countries coming here? This is what he's reported to have said, all right? But of course, on the other hand, we have a statement that actually says that he never said anything derogatory about Haitians other than Haiti is obviously a very poor and troubled country. Never said, take them out, made up by the Democrats. I have a wonderful relationship with Haitians. Probably should record future meetings. Unfortunately, no trust. This is the reaction he has come up to actually clear the air on that particular issue. Now, there have been reactions that have been coming up concerning this statement by the US President, Moussa Faki Mahamat. He said, at the time of this session, Africa has yet to finish digesting the statements of the President of the United States, which profoundly shocked with their messages conveying contempt, hate, and desire to marginalize and exclude Africans. This was his reaction as far as that is particularly concerned. So we'll be able to look at this issue concerning Donald Trump. Let's start with you, Gonzag. Not Gonzag, Gatete. I mean, looking at the back and forth that has been that has happened on this particular statement, what damage do you think it caused? And do you think damage has already been done? Is there a way of, this statement by Donald Trump and his office coming out to say that, you know what, I never said that. Actually, I have good relationship with Africans. I respect them. Do you think the damage has already been done?
I don't think there's any damage, to be honest. Two things. One, he said he didn't say it. So that when someone denies having said something, shows the level of themselves disagreeing with that state of the matter. But it's also an insult if it's uttered. It has more damage on the person who actually utters it than on a person who's allegedly supposed to receive it. If you take, in fact, usually you don't take stock of an insult. You ignore it.
You ignore it.
It's Wole Soyinka who said that a tiger doesn't proclaim its tigritude. You don't have to say, I'm not what you say I am, because therefore I give you powers over me, defining who I am. So these insults really don't have an impact on Africans. As far as I'm concerned.
They have no impact on Africans.
No,
Dr. Lonza, do you agree? Does it have any impact? Because we've seen reactions from various quarters on this matter. Should they be reacting or should they not, as Gatete is saying?
Well, the statement itself, when you look at the statement, there are two ways to look at it. If you look at Donald Trump's statement at the time and the statement he made at Davos, there's a cognitive dissonance, you know, in that...
Cognitive dissonance. Please
the
language.
Yeah, so like a contradiction, like someone who is unsure mental where they stand on a position. Now, why is it so? If you look, I said if you look at it intellectually, there's a cognitive dissonance. But if you look at it politically, it is consistent.
Consistent?
Yes, and the consistency...
On how he has been and who he is.
Yes, and the consistency is such that politically, Donald Trump has a base that he has to continue to feed. It's like a monster. You keep feeding it because it helps you elevate you to where you want to be. It elevated him to the presidency, and he has to continue feeding this monster with bigotry. So in that regard, he is very consistent, and politically, he is doing the right thing by being bigoted politically. But intellectually and morally, he's wrong.
Is very wrong. I mean, Gonzalo, what is your take on this? I mean, we have had various people coming up, including one of the UN envoys who actually, in South Africa, he actually was suggesting that we need to boycott Donald Trump's speech. Even if he was to come to the African Union summit, we need to boycott him. At the WEF, we need to boycott his speech. We should not go there.
Boycotts would not work. Boycotts would not work, and as Lonza said, it is very consistent. Trump has inserted very many people. Actually, the only people he has not inserted are white supremacists. But the rest he has, including people in his government. There have been lyrics about his own cabinet people saying this Sessions is this, Tillerson is this. So it is very consistent of his character. Boycotting him doesn't work because he still represents the United States. And I think part of what happened in Davos was the reaction. The other, I mean, they call them the mature people in the U.S. government, made him do certain things in Davos because they were obvious the reaction that happened. Many African countries said something. Actually, for the first time in a long time, we could see African countries, particularly the ambassadors, the UN, issuing a statement. All 54 member states signing on it. That was very significant. But it does not remove the fact
what value does it add? What does it change? I mean, all of them signing on it, then what?
Of course, it matters. They had to show the people in Africa that they are doing something about it. But also probably they squeezed somehow the diplomatically within the U.S. government, how it followed up after that. But also remember the most significant part was the reaction within the United States, because many politicians condemned it. The media gave it a lot of airtime. So it forced Trump to give out that tweet saying that he never used that derogatory term. So the bigger happenings were within the United States, which is more significant than what would say us as Africans.
Right, Dr. Lonza. I mean, today and even this week, the AU summit is actually taking place. Of course, the African UN envoys have suggested that Donald Trump should actually go there and explain himself and say, what did you really mean? Say it now in front of us. Do you see this happening?
We have a history of inviting people who abuse us to abuse us in our own home. So that is also consistent. Now, the statement that was released by the African Union and the other presidents, President of Ghana, the other presidents, I think it was insignificant. It was meaningless. Actually, it would have been better off had they said nothing. The reason I say that is because they put forth empty threats. There is no consequence. They said, okay, we think you mistreated us in your statement.
What would be the consequences?
That is the thing. That's where I'm going. They should have said, at the level of the African Union, you need to squeeze even though you have very little leverage over America, you can, there are some minor, more than symbolic things you can do to squeeze.
Like
you
what?
Squeeze the
Like what? Like
for instance, the privilege of the movement of Americans on the African continent.
You tell them that the ambassador of so-and-so of America will not be able to step into...
No, you simply have to say that from today on, all Americans will be required to have visas to come to Africa.
Yes, but to what,
Yes.
end?
But who loses?
What do we stand to benefit? Because, listen, people who insult, who use that kind of language, it's unprecedented, it's untethered, it's undiplomatic, it's inelegant. It shouldn't be a topic, right? So, for me, it's demeaning to even sit and talk about it. We shouldn't have that time.
So someone insults you and your people and your
But, Anango,
character, and you just sit back and say, we will not say anything, we will not do anything, we will not talk
If
about
someone on the street stands up and starts hurling abuses at you, what do you actually do? What do you normally
it. You
do?
tell me, what do you do?
You ignore them.
Usually ignore.
You ignore them. Now, saying that American citizens, this is an individual who has his personal instabilities and shortcomings, and this individual who may as well be the president.
Yes.
Has lacked tact
Yes.
in their utterance.
Yes.
And now you're going to penalize 300 million people
Yes.
of a great nation with which you have a long history of partnership and friendship because of one person who's unstable and erratic. It has nothing to do. Now it doesn't have any relations really.
Zero.
The point is this.
Yes.
If you're going to make a threat, you substantiate it. Otherwise, don't make it.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
You see, I wanted to look at the angle within internal American politics because the way it was so much talked about and exaggerated within the media is because the people are supposed to benefit
Do you
from
think it was exaggerated?
I think the progressives, the liberal, the
The
Democrats,
media exaggerated it?
the Democrats, yes, they made it so much of an issue because internally they are mobilizing immigrants, Hispanics, and blacks so that they know that we have to vigorously oppose Trump because it has an effect on how the electoral process plays out. You remember the most recent by-election for to press Jeff Sessions as a senator.
Right.
The blacks stand up in very, very big numbers, and that's why the Democrats were able to win in a red state, a previous Republican state. So I think it is my take that the reason why they so talked about it is to make sure that
Rub
they have
the
them.
salt on the wound completely.
Yes, they have them on their side. So in the midterms later this year, they could get all those black votes.
Right. But interestingly, it is actually not everybody, or actually every African leader or person that is annoyed at Donald Trump at that alleged statement. The president of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, actually admires President Donald Trump, and he actually says he's frank with Africans. Let's have a listen. I was at this particular session where he was addressing the East African Legislative Assembly, and he made this particular statement. Let's have a listen in.
America has got one of the best presidents ever. Mr. Trump, I love Trump. I love Trump because he tells Africans, frankly, I don't know whether he's misquoted or whatever, but when he speaks, I like him because he speaks frankly. The Africans need to solve their problems. They need to be strong. In the world, you cannot survive if you are weak. And it is the fault of the Africans that they are weak.
There you have it. It is the fault of the Africans that they are weak. Let me take your mind, read your mind, Dr. Lonzen. Do you agree with President Museveni?
Well, the one thing you can take from Museveni's statement is Museveni is as consistent in the inconsistencies as Trump is. And this is how inconsistently consistent Museveni is. Intellectually, when you look at his statement there, it is also reflects the cognitive dissonance I talked about in Trump, in that Museveni has also been called out for saying things and not living up to what he says. So there is that inconsistency. So politically, intellectually, Museveni reflects the same problem that Trump reflects.
That's a problem or a realistic statement of the real situation on the ground?
No, I'm telling you that there are two ways to look at Museveni's statement as well, the same way you look at Trump's. Politically, Museveni's statement also makes sense because Museveni is trying to align himself politically with Trump, and America is a very powerful superpower. You know that. So it is Museveni's interest to align himself with Trump, and that's what he's doing. So he's scoring political points.
Scoring political points. Before you go far, Danny Gonzag, do you think this is just a matter of President Museveni wanting to be a groupie with Donald Trump?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when he talks about Africa's problems, I would think Museveni is also part of Africa's problems.
Explain.
Because,
how?
I mean, he's not the best in governance. If we were talking about problems we are facing in Africa, in the different countries which are operating below potential, the country Museveni is presiding over is among. But he understands Trump's psychology. You see, wherever he goes, they put a very big parades for Trump. People praise him because they know that's how he reacts. Even in Davos, for the first time, they put even a band on the stage, which they because they know how Trump is. I think Museveni also calculated and said that I have to buy into Trump's whatever.
So what you're saying is that there is no truth to
there may be
what President
but there's
Museveni
some
says.
dishonesty.
Yeah, dishonesty in who?
President Museveni, if we get any insult from anyone in the world, the first person who's responsible, among the people who are responsible, President Museveni is one of them.
Why?
He is one of the eldest, longest serving presidents. Everyone who insults Africa, they have his country in mind. He's been there. What has he done? When he talks about loving people who tell it as it is because it's Africa's fault to be weak.
So it's
what
wrong,
has he done?
So it's wrong for President Museveni to say that Donald Trump is right about Africa.
I think just he should
the
have
point is on his
let it go.
intention.
Yes.
What-
His intention. The fact may be, I partly agree that we are responsible for our own problems as Africans, and we have to look for solutions. But what is Museveni's intention? That's exactly what he's saying. He has been around for 30 years. What is he doing to help solve that?
But also the hypocrisy, because Museveni is known for being dishonest. Now, when he says that he values Trump's honesty, he's not being honest with himself. And that's the problem.
And that thing that he plays around, you know, like, I love Trump. He has all this, he always is facetious to elude the truth.
Do you love Trump? Do you admire his honesty? Do you
First of
think
all, I
he's
don't
honest?
love politicians. That's not what people do. People don't love politicians. They assess them on a decision-making basis and a track record and so on. It's not a romantic relationship. So that's Museveni for you. He makes these sound bites that are empty. And for a president who's been in power for more than 30 years, to say that he is happy with a president who's made disparaging remarks on an African continent, which he has led for so many years,
But the
making all sorts of anecdotes.
The argument is that we definitely, I mean, I've seen on social media people saying that Donald Trump is actually speaking truth to his word. Whatever he says
truth?
is that, you know what, he tells us the truth, and that when we're told the truth, we feel bad. I mean, I've seen this
Have you
argument.
been to America, to France, to wherever?
Anangwe, I
Yes.
know you want someone to tell you that they love Trump. I do, for this reason, I'm going to tell you. The reason is that Trump lacks the sophistication to conceal his bigotry and prejudices in ways others have done. Obama, Clinton, Bush Jr., Bush Sr., before that, Ronald Reagan, Carter, all the way. The people who are his predecessors, they were able to command a sophistication that was able to conceal their bigotry. And I want to underline, including Obama himself, Obama's sophistication with the ability to conceal the institutional bigotry that America had, that Obama could conceal it even much more deeply than the rest because of his color of being black. Now, Trump lacks that. He lacks that sophistication, and because he lacks it, he's perceived to be honest. But it is actually a deficiency. It's a deficiency because the American institution would like him, in its interest, to conceal those prejudices. But because he lacks the sophistication to do so, because of his upbringing and so on, he lacks the sophistication to conceal, as the institution requires him to, the American state requires him to conceal it in its interest. Because of that, that's why they're threatening to impeach him. They're threatening to impeach him because he has demonstrated the inability to command a sophistication that conceals America's words.
Right. I mean, Gonza,
yes,
I mean, they say, I mean, I've heard also in some instances,
Yes.
when someone tells you the truth, you start saying that, we're going to hate on this person.
That's why I said that I doubt Museveni's intentions, but some of the facts are right. Because, I mean, the last 500 years, Africa, most of Africa has not shown that, has not matched with the rest of civilization. Previously, maybe Africa was better. It's because we have our own internal contradictions, our inconsistencies, our structures. We haven't put in the effort necessary to overcome the colonial legacy.
Yes.
It's more rhetoric. So yes, definitely there are problems on the African continent. That's why we see a lot of people, young men, moving across the Mediterranean, trying to get to drowning, even in the Red Sea,
Right.
and so on. But doesn't make the continent as hopeless as
it is looking.
Trump's word would imply.
Right.
There is so much hope. There's so much going on the continent. It hasn't reached where we wish, but there's so much going on, and some people are happy.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a very short break, of course, just to digest some of the conversations that we've had right here on this particular program. Of course, it is definitely interactive. All I need you to do is simply tweet us, use the hashtag InFocusRW. Talk to us. Tell us what you think about the statements that you've heard from our panelists on their analysis, whether you agree or don't agree with them. The sound bites that we've played for you from President Museveni of Uganda, do you agree with him? Do you also support Donald Trump, the president of the US? Do you also feel that he tells Africans the truth? And do you agree with President Museveni that indeed Africans are weak and it is their own fault that they are weak? Of course, when we come back, we'll be digesting and moving the conversation forward, looking at the African Union Summit. President Paul Kagame of Rwanda assuming the chairpersonship of the AU. What does that mean and what lies ahead? We'll analyze that when we come back. Do stay with us.
Many people have been asking what we have been up to. Well, we have told the different stories from decision makers, but this time round, it will be different. We will be getting head to head with various influencers and get to the heart of the matter. It is not an easy ride, but we'll endeavor to get you there. It will be insightful, informative, and at times we will agree to disagree because we are the bridge to your leaders.
Magic FM.
Isaha rero y'isa 10:18 of course ni Magic Drive turi kumwe mpaka isaa 1 z'umugoroba. Dutega amatwi kuri 90.7 Magic FM mace kumwe na Gerard ndetse na Michelle Iradukunda.
Mwaramutseho nanone iki ni ikiganiro Magic Morning mwumva kuva kwa mbere kugera kuri gatano tugikora kuva saa 2 za mu gitondo kugera saa 3 za mu gitondo ni mukuru w'urushi.
Magic FM.
Right, thank you so much for still being with us. It is In Focus. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Tonight it is an analysis edition. We are analyzing some of the happenings across the week that just ended and this week that just starts concerning the African Union Summit. We have also been talking about the Davos World Economic Forum. Plus, of course, we're still building up on those conversations right here. And we are loving your feedback. Keep tweeting hashtag InFocusRW. Add that. Always add the hashtag InFocusRW because our team is actually definitely compiling that to give us those tweets, and we'll be able to sample some of them. For example, I have one from Jules Havugimana, which says, I agree because it is the truth. See desperate immigrants cross the sea. We have to solve our problems, not expecting the US as your last hope. This is in agreement with President Yoweri Museveni that Africa has itself to blame. Alinda Pio Munyaneza on Twitter says, I'm loving the debate. He has been around for over 30 years. What has he done to solve the African problems? This is going to President Museveni on his statement concerning Trump. Another one from Abiola Isaac says, if Trump is real, he's really or likely not to see the next 4 years for antagonizing the America's foreign policies where it has gained supremacy over time. Gustave Emilien, my good friend, says, what has Museveni done? Like, for real? You say that on national TV? Right, Davis says, following interesting topics. Thank you so much, Davis. Another one from Aimable Dukundane says, these are the right panelists for this show. They are all speaking their hearts. Kudos. Kudos, gentlemen. Right, of course. There's the Davos Forum, or the World Economic Forum that took place in Davos, and of course, a lot took place right there. Plus, of course, we had President Paul Kagame of Rwanda meeting with Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America. This coming in the wake of the heated pressure on the U.S. administration over the remarks that were alleged to have been made by the U.S. President Donald Trump. Let's see and listen to how that conversation on that historic meeting between President Paul Kagame and Donald Trump of the U.S., how it went, and then we'll analyze that when we come back.
It's a great honor to be with President Kagame. We have had tremendous discussions on Rwanda. The job they've done is absolutely terrific. We have trade with Rwanda and just general, I would say, great relationships. I want to congratulate you, Mr. President, as being the new head of the African Union. That's a great honor. This was just announced recently, and that really, truly is a great honor. So please give my regards. I know you're going to your first meeting very shortly, and please give my warmest regards. But it's an honor to have you as a friend. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, it was a great honor to meet the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, and we had good discussions on those two levels, the bilateral relations between Rwanda and the United States. Rwanda has benefited tremendously from the support of the United States in many areas where it is in peace support operations we have carried out in different parts of the world. We had the United States on our side supporting us. They have supported our economy in trade, investment. We see a lot of tourists from the United States, visitors coming to Rwanda. And President, I wanted to thank you for the support we have received from you, personally, and the administration. And we are looking forward to also working with the United States at the level of the African Union, where we are carrying out reforms at the African Union so that we get our act together to do the right things, and that helps in cooperating with the United States. It would be more beneficial when we are organized to know what we want from the United States.
Sure.
For that cooperation, so I thank you very much.
Well, I thank you very much, and it's a great honor to have all of you here, and we'll speak for a little bit longer.
There you have it. And of course, it has been biled as a historic meeting, and I want us to just take a few minutes to analyze that with our panelists right here, Gonzag Muganwa, Dr. Lonzen, and of course, Gatete. Let me start with you, Gonzag. I mean, the fact that President Paul Kagame, who is now the chairperson of the African Union, was meeting with the US president, of course, in the backdrop or in the wake of those rumors of that statement, the backlash, the back and forth from the administration, I've heard of people who are feeling that we missed an opportunity to actually tell off the US president. Do you think this was a missed opportunity?
It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. I even saw some American commentators saying that President Kagame did not say anything about those words. But the meeting was more important to Trump than to President Kagame, because the optics were very important to recover his reputation, if he believes in that. But I think his advisors, Tillerson and HR McMaster, who played a part in organizing this meeting, knew that it was important that the president be seen that, and as he said, that it's an honor to meet the chairman of the African Union, president of Rwanda.
Right.
Secondly, President Kagame has enjoyed good relations with the United States. So from the Clinton years, Clinton came here, Bush came here, he met Obama severally. So the meeting itself is not out of the ordinary, but the timing, why it happened right now, that was very important for Trump and his domestic constituencies.
Right, the timing. Dr. Lonzen, what do you read out of that? Do you also feel that this was a chance for President Paul Kagame, speaking on behalf of Africa under the AU as a chairperson, he would have actually set the record straight? Do you think it is easier said than done?
Well, I think, first of all, Trump was trying too much. So trying to show he respects Africans, you know, he loves them, and you know, he overdid it to the point that it lost value for anybody who was.
Overdo it? How do you know that he's overdoing it?
Yeah, because we have had enough time with Trump in the public space to know that he's. So he was acting, and he acted very well. Now, the interest of Africa and the US. Africa does not need to antagonize the United States, because the United States, the fact is, it is a superpower that it is better to collaborate with than to antagonize.
Yes.
On the other hand, the United States also needs, for strategic reasons, you know, it has its war on terror through Africa. It has the resources it gets from the continent. So the strategic influence the US wants in Africa, it is also important that it carries itself the way it did. And Trump, through either his advisors or himself, at least America as a state understands the importance of President Kagame in his role as the chair of Africa. So he had to respect him, even if he didn't respect him from personal preference, but as a strategic interest of the United States. The Chinese are making headway in Africa, Turkish and probably the Russians will be coming and so forth. So the struggle for Africa is taking place, so they're scrambling for us once again. And it is important that America remains influential, and having Kagame on his side is very helpful.
Very helpful. I mean, Gatete, in your own views, as Gatete views, do you really think, as Dr. Lonzen says, that there was too much acting on the part of Donald Trump? And as you answer that, if listening keenly to President Kagame, his short statement right there, what do you think you'd have expected him to say that he did not say?
So, three things. One, acting. Yes, Trump overdid it. Trump being humble and speaking from a place of humility and with a humble voice, and it's quite interesting. But I think it's the right penance for the alleged utterances that he did. So it kind of, it's his way of apologizing. But, so that's number one. Number two, this meeting should not be based or only premised from remarks that were made, you know, remarks of insults and so on. There is so much Americans and Africans share to be only defined by this controversy that's happening.
Right.
Also, President Kagame is not driven by Democrats and liberal media. He's not trying to play into, they're using the anti-Africa antagonism to weaken Trump and the Republican Party politically.
Right.
That's their thing. That's American politics. It's not up to us to go into that. Trump made a speech about how humble he is, how respectful and so on. Fine. Let's move on to peacekeeping, which the president talked about. But all that is interesting. But one thing I note, and this is why I join Lonzen in saying Trump is probably the better president for Africa in a very, very long time.
Wrong time.
Long time.
Okay. Yes.
Why? Did you hear any lecture about democracy, about human rights? Did you hear anything about aid or about help or about support? It was all about trade, about commerce, about cooperation on development, on peacekeeping.
So the fact that he didn't touch on those issues of human rights it's a good thing?
The fact that they had an actual genuine relationship or conversation about mutual understanding. This is a new breed of leaders in Africa and in America, actually, who do not come from a place of ideology. They come from a place of mutual beneficial relationships.
I mean, the two gentlemen, Dr. Lonzen and Gonzaga, when you listen to him say that, and the worry is that probably as a human rights lawyer, saying that matters of human rights were not touched, and that makes Trump a good president for Africa in a long time.
I have to answer before you go to them.
Yes.
Can I be his lawyer? Let me be his lawyer. I'll be his lawyer.
I'll be his prosecutor.
Yeah. The point is, Katete is making is that the predecessors, the list I told you, including the Obama, your very own Obama,
yes,
they concealed a narrative of undermining Africans through democracy, human rights. These were tools that were used to conceal the desire to dominate Africa. But when the real interests were never talked about, and the real interests, these are the interests about exploitation, exploiting African resources, driving a one-way globalization. So there's another conversation that they never talked about that was more meaningful to the lives of the Africans that were never tabled by predecessors. So the conversation that comes with Trump has much more meaning, and it is not concealed or camouflaged in some ideas that themselves do not value, because they will support dictators if it's their interest, and they will, you understand? So the hypocrisy is being removed from the conversation, and that's very significant for Africa.
And then prosecutor,
I must pay
you see, the fact that they are hypocrites does not remove the fact that the ideas of democracy, human rights, are very important everywhere globally, and it's one of the biggest challenges in the Trump era, because he seems to love authoritarians and dictators. He's supporting that young man who's doing chaos in Saudi Arabia, General Sisi. He loves Putin, all those dictators, and I think some of our leaders who are willing or see or trampling on human rights, they say they are feeling a sense of relief because America is no longer there to tell them. Not that it should be America telling us to respect human rights. We should respect human rights and democracy,
even
because
without
we
being
know,
told. Yes,
because we know their importance. It does not move the fact that we have a history of many countries on the continent, even some at the moment, where there is a very big shortage.
Because we need to move on. We need to move to the next item.
Wait.
It's 43.
I know you are the moderator. I know. It is very dangerous for us to live here with the narrative that America supports governments that are democratic. America supports governments that work in the interests of align with American interests. So if there's a dictator, Sisi, whoever, this dictator, American foreign policy has been supporting dictatorships for a long time. So it is not the case that Trump is supporting dictators. So it is the policy consistency.
I'm the human rights lawyer here.
Okay. You had your chance to defend yourself. You had to be defended by amicus curiae.
I must defend myself.
Because of time, we need to move to the next
I just have to clarify one thing.
1 second, yes.
Sisi is not a dictator. Sisi just got elected democratically the other day.
We have to regard democratic. That's number one. The guy has met a lot of opposition.
When you speak of human rights, people think human rights, right to food, right to life, right to shelter, right to healthcare, right to education,
what should it be? What should
are not human rights. Those are fundamental human rights. So when people think of human rights and say freedom of media, that's not the only human rights there is. In fact, that's a human right that you get after you have a right to life. I promise you,
we're going to have a conversation specifically on that. A whole topic, 1 whole hour. Let's have this conversation also by also trying to read some of the tweets that we are receiving right here. I have one from at Beiki 13. And anasema, yes, I can say that H.E. Museveni, he has to be the first one to do something. He's been ruling for a long period of time, but almost nothing he has changed. All right, thank you for that. I think the friend thing by Donald Trump is hypocrisy. You guys are not optimistic at all. One point the panelists are missing is that Trump's statement is simply racist. He reportedly called the African countries plus Haiti while welcoming people from Norway, predominantly a white country. This is the point that they feel you're missing, that there's an issue of hypocrisy right here. Umva, let's move to the next issue. President Paul Kagame is definitely, it is not news anymore. It's not breaking news at all. And of course, he has taken over the mantle of leadership of the African Union. And of course, these are some of the items on his agenda. 1, to enable AU to finance itself in the long term. 2, focus the organization on key priorities with continental scope. And 3, realign AU institutions to deliver against those priorities. And lastly, manage the business of the AU effectively in both political and operational terms. I want that graphic to remain on the screen as we talk about it. Let's have it back on the screen. Let's put it back on the screen as we talk about that. Right, so let's take some time and talk about this. I mean, this is what President Paul Kagame has on his agenda as he takes over as the AU chairperson. Enable AU to finance itself in the long term. I want to know, how practical is this going to be? There's a lot of hope from social media. I see a lot of hope even from the statements being made at the AU summit with the leaders who are actually congratulating President Paul Kagame. But how realistic is this going to be? It's easy for him to lead Rwanda because he has full control over Rwanda. But then entire Africa, countries which have their own presidents, political systems, sovereignty, how easy is it going to be for President Kagame to deliver on this? Gatete, I've just elevated you to doctor.
First of all, he was not elected to be the leader of Africa. He was elected to be the leader of the African Union.
Yes.
So there's a nuance there. And therefore, he's not going to go into people's countries' governments and tell them what to do. No, that's not why he's there. He's there to deliver on a mission, which he spelled out very clearly in his speech. So you talked about reforms of the African Union, self-funding, and I just want to tell you that on the self-funding, 20 countries have already started collecting this levy, so it's a very achievable thing. It's within our means. He mentioned a few points. There was a point about, so we already signed an agreement about free airspace for all African countries. We have within our reach, like he said, a free trade space for the entire continent. Free movement of people. These are projects that are within reach, that he defined, that he identified.
They're within reach, but they will need full commitment by each of the members
the commitment
of
has
African
been secured.
Union. Yes.
The commitment has been secured. It's secured by signing an agreement. Now, there are also mechanisms to ensure this.
Right.
So President Kagame has not taken more than he can chew. He's not trying to do regime change. He's not trying to bring democracy and human rights like many like to do. He's not trying to, he has targeted projects and benchmarks
that he would like to see.
And he has ministers of commerce, ministers of economy, ministers of this. So he has people who are in charge. He has a team.
Right.
So it's very practical.
Dr. Lonsen, these are not his ministers, like in his own government, that he can say during Umushichirano and say, stand up, why didn't you perform?
Oh, he's going to do that.
You know, are we going to see this happening?
Yes.
Well, I think this 2018 is going to be, it is very hopeful for Kagame, but it's going to be also very frustrating for him. And the reason to be very frustrating is that, like you said, internally in Rwanda, he has the tools to do something when he's frustrated.
Yes.
On the continental level, he does not have those tools. Now, every generation since independence at the continental level has had an opportunity to structurally transform Africa. And if you go from the 1980s, from the Lagos Plan of Action, there's been all these opportunities. Now, why have they failed? The reason they have all failed is because we operate from there's a structural problem that Africa faces. And this structural problem is that we operate in a neo-colonial setting. Because we operate in a neo-colonial setting, everywhere you step, there is a potential landmine. So you have to go very slowly to make sure you don't step on a landmine. Because That's the reason they have failed. As you make a step back, there are forces that are pushing you to make 2 steps back. Yeah, and you're not always sure what those forces are. They're not visible. So when you look at the structure, the way Africa is, from its colonial heritage to the present, there are inbuilt structural impediments to any efforts that are being pursued at this moment.
So it's not going to be an easy ride.
Yes, there's the frustration because he will not be able to see who is pulling strings back in the back. So, so people are pulling strings, but he doesn't know who's pulling strings. So he's unable to find a cure for the problem because he doesn't know who is pulling the string. Someone is talking on the lips, but he doesn't know where the words, who is feeding the words. Right. You know, so it's going to be very frustrating. That is why it is very important that he identifies areas that that don't structurally cause him so much frustrations that he's able to mobilize much easier. And when you see that there is a confrontation with that structural problem, that is when those forces rise. Right. So for him to succeed, he'll be able to address those areas that will cause less potential for those landmines. Right. And I think there'll be areas of success, there'll be areas of frustration, and I think the frustration will be a result of neocolonialism fighting back.
I mean, Gatete says the spirit and will is there, and it has actually been their channels. They have signed. But Gonzaga, in the East African community, we have so many signed protocols and agreements, which today still lie in some of the shelves, or the full implementation hasn't taken
degree,
place.
Gatete is right because President Kagame picked what is achievable. He did not promise to carry out a revolution that terminates the colonialists, that transforms the continent. No, he chose specific points which actually affect the structure, the organizational structure of the African Union as an institution, rather than a revolution. Those we used to hear from Nkrumah, Gaddafi, Sankara, who were saying that, oh, we are changing everything and nothing happened. Even Museveni has been promising a federation. Every time he campaigns on the federation. So he is not promising those hard facts, those complicated things that are very hard. Promising those organizations, I think, which are possible. The trade area,
so it's going to happen.
Those can happen.
Right.
But the frustration actually will be on those who have expectation that he has a magic wand, sort of the deep structural problems Africa has. Yeah.
Right.
But let's talk about the resistance.
It's not going to happen now. But he said we may not be able to solve these problems in 1 year, but we should in 20 years. So that is a time frame that is
so he would be able to leave a structure that can still be worked on by whoever comes in after he leaves.
Yeah, but though the African Union will not be the one sort of all the intricate problems in the 54 countries. There have to be internal mechanisms, something emerging. If it is Congo, if it is South Sudan, the elite and the people.
No, but the president in his some of those reforms. Let's have that graphic back on the screen. There is actually a part where he says that indeed the African Union should be able to deal, or actually deliver on its mandate on dealing with those particular problems. There we have it. Focus the organization on key priorities with continental scope.
Oh my God.
And then the fourth one, manage the business of the African Union effectively in both political and...
Anango, this is the following resistance.
Yes.
Sorry, Gonza.
Yes.
President Kagame is a disruptive president. In the sense, he's a disrupting factor to the African Union. Some of the reforms he's suggesting are going to reduce the amount of people who work for the African Union by 70% almost. Some people are going to be laid off. And these are cousins of X, Y, and Z who are powerful people in their respective countries. President Kagame is going to cut some of the projects that were funded by external donors.
So you're going to see a Magufuli scenario?
No. Are we going to see it though? Because we might see or not see it. So what I'm saying is that there are resistance factors. Because President Kagame comes in, suggested reforms, but these reforms to happen, there must be, some people are going to lose their jobs, some people are going to lose their advantages, some people are going to lose their leverage. And remember, no one willingly participates to their own obsolescence.
Right.
But that make the problem is this. More effective?
These will be the manifestation of a much deeper problem that's taking place. And that will be, if Kagame is able to succeed on these 4 points, Africa is able to make independent decision making, and that is very risky.
Right.
That is very dangerous.
For who?
To the rest of the world.
If the global structure. If Africa is able to achieve these things, it means it can pursue, let me give you some examples of things it can pursue. It can pursue the removal of West African countries from the CFA. It can, that's the next logical step. 2, it can pursue the reform of the UN. Number 2. Number 3, it can pursue the reform of the World Trade Organization. All these are serious problems in the global economic structure.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so, and this is what the president said, that we need to agree on a binding mechanism to ensure that the African Union member states respect the key decisions. And of course, these were the decisions concerning the reforms that we have all decided that we need to actually go on with this. What would be the rubber stamp that says, you know what, approve this one, we're going to make it? As we've all heard, there are challenges that are going to happen. But what happens next?
No, even before you go that, there is a history with these attempts to move forward the African Union, especially how is he going to manage the other forces? If you look at what Gaddafi attempted, the African leaders who actively challenged or even tried to fail. In the 60s, what the Nkurumas were doing, the egos would come in and you find somebody is trying to put the other side.
Yes.
Now, won't there be a situation where particularly you don't have a good relationship with the particular leader and he tries to mobilize against you? How that is managed, it will be a very, very important point.
Right. Daniel, let me just read this very quickly because they've started shouting in my ears and we need to start packing and leaving. Daniel G. Mahe says, on the other side, I believe the office will humble him. Give him time. He already started to act more or less a president. This is for Donald Trump. Another one right here, I've seen one that is a bit optimistic concerning President Kagame taking over the office. When it comes back, we'll definitely be able to go through it. But of course, these are some of the conversations that we've been having right here. And one, Alinda, says that I am quite optimistic with President Paul Kagame at the helm of the African Union. I think we have an opportunity for it to express its mandate. So, gentlemen, as we start packing and leaving, I mean, the general outlook of the Africa-US relations, I mean, do we intend to see a change in what has been happening as far as US-Africa relations and China coming in and all that? I mean, let's give our closing remarks.
Africa is very big, so and each country has its own interests, how it balances the China and the US.
Yes.
So they continue playing different ways, playing out different ways.
Yes.
And the other point I wanted to make is that Africa is not like the European Union, which has a superpower dominating policy. Germany. Countries that would be doing it, Nigeria, maybe Egypt or South Africa, they are not organized. They can't even put out the money that is necessary. They have it. Actually, this would not be necessary if a country would come up, like Germany foots the bill and say, we are footing the bill for the African Union. It would also change how it approaches the relations with the big powers as a group. Can we organize even a common defense?
Right. Maliza, Dr. Lonzen.
In 1980,
very quickly, you started 1980, we're 2080. Come on.
In 1980, Africa tried to structure reform because of the oil crisis that had taken place earlier, that showed the vulnerabilities that the continent was facing. The Lagos Plan of Action was intended to do structural reform. Now, the World Bank was threatened by that report that in 1981 it released its own called the Bag Report. Look, the Bag Report came to counter the Lagos Plan of Action because we were threatened by the potential dependence of decision making that would come out of the Lagos Plan of Action. There is going to be a countermeasure that is going to come to counter President Paul Kagame. And that force is being created somewhere. Somewhere. Yes.
Right. Lonzen and
very quickly,
Lonzen and Gonzaga, right? Yes. But one thing is, Africa must act.
Yes.
Whether there's a force that comes to counter it, that means it recognizes that there's some agency by Africans, and President Kagame is going to bring that agency.
Right.
And what will happen, the countermeasure and so on, is going to be another just force.
I'm going to cut you short.
Yeah. So basically, I think I'm optimistic because we're going to see things moving.
Right. Optimistic. Thank you so much.
Don't bet against Kagame. Never bet against Kagame.
All right. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, thank you so much for watching us. tonight on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of it. You've been tweeting. Thank you very much. We've been able to sample some of them. The system was not able to read all those tweets, but of course, I'm going to try next week and we'll be able to have them here projected on the screen. But at least I've been able to do it analog-wise through my phone. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. Let's keep talking. Hashtag InFocusRW as we look ahead towards the week. Next week, we're talking about the issue of negligence in our hospitals. Share your stories through my direct mail, secretly or even publicly. Just tweet me at Eugene Anangwe. Give us your experience, what you've gone through, so that we can be able to have that conversation with the health minister right here on Sundays. Good night and goodbye for now. My name, as always, is Eugene. Good night.